Hi, this is Matt with the Intergalactic Herald. Welcome to my Star Atlas Week in Review podcast. This is podcast number 115. Any articles or videos mentioned can be found on my website at intergalacticherald.com. Just look for news recap number 63. So this past week in Star Atlas, there was a few things going on. The Atlas Brew by the community team occurred. The Economic Forum by the Star Atlas Economy Department occurred. And that was it. So kind of a short week. Oh, there was something about some game testers. So I'll go over those in a couple minutes, but just wanted to mention some Star Atlas projects I am working on. The first, of course, is my website, intergalacticherald.com. It's a great place for Star Atlas resources. I have my guide, a number of directories. In fact, I just updated the resources. I'm totally forgetting what I called it. Well, anyways, builders. It has a number... Man, I cannot remember things. Oh, well. Anyways, check it out. It's one of the links under directories. But I took a list that was actually put together by one of the community members of VB who had a lot of great things for guides, tools, things like that. And so I was, with permission, took all that list and updated there. And so now it's a much more thorough directory. So check that out. And I do have my guide and other things that are there. And then I do have two other Star Atlas projects. First is my Star Atlas merch store at Intergalactic Gear, and that's at intergalacticgear.com. It's open for business. Just a couple products. Still on my long-term plan to put some more up there, but just not enough time and, well, just doing too many things. So please check out Intergalactic Gear. Also do have a merch survey, so I'd love to get any feedback if you're willing to give it on merch that you'd be interested in. And then my other project is called Intergalactic Coalition. Yes, you see a trend there with the word intergalactic. Intergalactic Coalition is a Star Atlas community for gamers who aren't interested in joining a guild and maybe want a different environment than the Star Atlas Discord. So this one is a community platform that's much more about not chat, but more of discussions. You can sign up for email alerts on those discussions so you don't have to always be checking and kind of keep up with the things that you're interested in. So if that sounds something like you're interested in, I do have an interest survey. Please go to intergalacticcoalition.com and take a look at that. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the kind of things that happened this last week in Star Atlas. I briefly mentioned that there was a new effort to get Star Atlas game testers, and don't have a lot of information and doesn't really matter because it's already closed. But just to bring up that Star Atlas did have an open invitation for game testers of the 5 version, and you could submit yourself to application. Apparently they had over 100 people that were interested, so that's a great turnout. And I think they said they were going to pick around 10 or so. And those game testers got a special, tag in the Star Atlas Discord. So, great. That's awesome. It's good to use the community for some feedback and things like that. And the fact that they kind of made it a special group and things like that, that's kind of cool to have those kind of things that exist within Star Atlas. So the two big things that the Star Atlas team did this past week is the community team did the regular Atlas Brew, and this one was part 2 of the Play to Earn discussion. So in addition to the 3 members of the community team, the CEO, Michael Wagner, showed up, and Gareth, one of the members of the con department, also was there. So it was a great discussion. Do admit they gave a little hint of something coming out. If you've been around Star Atlas for a while, you know that town halls are usually special events where the team releases a lot of information. And so they definitely sounds like they're leaning toward a town hall sometime in July or this summer. Of course, they always put the caveats that, 426, which is the internal meme. But anyways, but on the Play to Earn topic, they did have a series of kind of questions, and they were just talking, and then it kind of went off on whatever tangent the group wanted to talk about. So great listen if you're kind of interested to talk about the Play to Earn thing. There were 2 things that kind of highlighted to me. One was the question that was asked about where do you think you're going to be in 5 years, or what does Star Atlas think it's going to be? And it was interesting and also kind of made sense. They've always been talking about kind of a 5-year plan. So they did say that, in 5 years, highly likely the full game roadmap would be complete. And yeah, that makes sense. It's a little hard though when we've already been building for how many years, but again, definitely building upon what has already come. And so as this team has always said, that things will come faster once they get some of these foundational things. So just to hear it again, that there is an actual end date, and they do have a roadmap and things like that. The other thing, and I think this was kind of the topic of the Play to Earn, so hence the economy thing, there was some definitely discussion about, is there a possibility that you could maybe, and again, I thought this was really interesting. Somebody says that a lot have been talked about, oh, get a job and things like that, but who wants to get a job? It's what you do in real life. But I think it was interesting that the potential to earn, but doing things that are much more enjoyable. So yes, it's kind of a job, but it's not just changing your time for money, though there would be a time component. It'd be hopefully something fun. And a lot of allusion was made to Axie Infinity, which is a previous game that came out that had a blockchain integration, and how some people in countries were able to actually replace their jobs. So there's definitely, again, the potential. So again, this was more of the, what they use the word, theory crafting. I just like the word, they're just talking about stuff. So anyway, so that was all very interesting. So if you want to take a listen to that, I do have a link. Again, thanks to Starhouse TV for recording those and posting them on their YouTube channel. And then on Thursday, the monthly economic forum from the Starhouse Economy Department was out. Again, great listen. I know I always say that it's tough for me to kind of sometimes pay attention because I'm kind of multitasking on a Friday. This time I actually stopped it and did what I was going to do, which was just go through the Starhouse Discord. And then I actually listened to it, and I almost made it all the way through until I actually started falling asleep. Now, it wasn't that the content was bad. It was just really late on night on a Friday after a long week of business, family, and everything. So, but more of it actually became things I paid attention to. So a couple things I wanted to highlight. They did show some data, which was really interesting, about the ships moving from the score or the faction fleet into the fleet rentals. Because, of course, everything's on chain. The team knows when they're in one place, they go to the other. And so it actually was kind of cool to see that there was actually a migration. I've kind of speculated on earlier podcasts. I'm like, if somebody's kind of checked out of Star Atlas and they have their ships, how would they even know there's a new thing called fleet rentals? Well, apparently people are figuring it out because things were starting to move. And they did make some great analysis that, the amount of money that you could have done in score to move in the faction fleet was dramatically different. So, in other words, fleet rentals actually accomplished what they intended to do, which is they give a more passive way to be involved in Star Atlas. So that was great to see those statistics and things like that. I think either it was asked or they already were going to talk about, is this where they can finally turn off the faction fleet? And they were kind of saying, maybe whatever, and kind of hedging. But I think one point they made that made a lot of sense. There's really no need to close it down. It's not as economical as it once was. There's no programming time. It doesn't have much of an impact. So turning it off is, it takes effort to turn it off too. So kind of made me think that maybe this is going to be around, but more of being irrelevant. So the next topic they kind of got into, and I have to admit, this is just one part of the Star Atlas Sage that I just not involved with because I don't have a big fleet, but Faction Infrastructure Contacts, or FIC? The whole bunch of sniping. Now, I know that's a gaming term of kind of taking advantage of things and stuff, so I'm not 100% sure what's occurring, but what it sounds like is that these contracts, which you could redeem for Atlas, are basically refill it like once a week or something. So everybody just comes in immediately, redeems them, and then the supply drains. So I'm not really up on the thing, but they were definitely saying that they prefer a better system and things like that, and they discuss different ideas on how maybe to do it. So again, this is, I think, one of their awesome benefits that the Econ department does do a monthly meeting. So we know about these things, we can hear about them, we know what they're thinking about. And so even though I don't understand it all, and I'm not involved with it, it's great, again, to see that this stuff shows up, and also to know that there are actual economists figuring this stuff out. So, and on that note, they did mention some other things that they're thinking of maybe changing in the economy, but again, they're still just kind of making thoughts and things like that. So again, overall, great thing. Do check it out. Again, Starhouse TV, link on my website, Intergalactic Herald, News Recap 163, which will link out to Starhouse TV, who again records that. So that's great. And again, that was pretty much it. And this is a great transition into kind of my thinking of the state of Star Atlas this last week. Yeah, I have to say it's very calm. And I guess I say that not as a negative, but it just feels like things are just really stable. Again, a couple weeks ago, they released an update to Sage interface. First, it didn't seem to be doing good, but I was trying to do some stuff myself, and everything just seemed to work. Kind of like the interface. It's got a little more contextual menus, and so that kind of makes sense. The Discord just sounds quieter too. Literally, that could be the fact that the DAO council election is over and people were speculating that people just show up in the DAO channels because there's an election. Of course, I'm in there because I have my proposal still under review. But even some of the other channels seem to kind of be quiet. Foundation Room definitely sounded quiet, which, again, I could say because everybody can read it because it's read-only. But anyways, yeah, but I think this might be more of a period of time where, and again, maybe this is alluding to this town hall they've kind of teased, that things are just stable and they're working on the next things. Again, playtesters getting ready for UE5 version is all good. So again, nothing wrong with being calm. So yeah, don't really have much more to say on that. So, and then the last segment, just kind of talking about my journey, actually kind of on the stable and calm. I'm kind of feeling like I'm into a nice routine. Still transport. So again, my goal is to get a Mamba X, and I'm transporting all the carbon that I need back from the Starbase to the Central Space Station. Still need to do the research on the local markets and whether or not selling it makes a lot of sense. But till I can find the time to do that, definitely transporting is going to get it back, and I'm only out the cost of fuel and Sol for the transaction fees. So again, once I can figure out if it makes sense to sell and what's the pros and cons of that, then I'll know for sure. But hey, it's moving back. My new Armstrong Imp tip is mining great at the iron ore. In fact, it seems to be accumulating at a decent clip. So that's cool. Great addition to my fleets to have that one little guy. And then I think I may have mentioned I had splurged and also got a Calico Scud and forgot about it, and then realized, hey, you can take out some food and fuel to that Armstrong Imp tip, and did that. Then I realized, so I set that up on a little loop just to fill it up. But then I realized that I could buy, let's see, what was going, food, I think. Yeah, food at the local market. So just having it sit doing nothing because I don't want to burn up any more Sol just doing a single loop. So anyway, so yeah, that's all been working great. And again, purchasing those resources at the local market, yeah, it does change things. You don't have to worry about always moving it out. So yeah, so everything again on my plane seems kind of stable. I'm just, moving along, keeping the things, hitting milestones of I think more 50% of the transport back of the carbon. So yeah, so everything kind of feels really good there. So again, calm, stable week. Plain Sage, and that's pretty much it. So thanks for listening. Again, totally open if anybody wants to be a guest on the podcast. So definitely could be another community member who wants to talk about the week in review, open to talk to other builders if they want to talk about their Star Atlas projects, and of course, always open to Star Atlas team members. Definitely interested in kind of getting more beginner content, how to get started or what things mean and stuff like that. So definitely reach out at intergalacticherald.com. Just look for my contact page. And again, just to remember, if you're on the intergalacticherald.com website, again, do have a lot of resources there, guides, directories, predominantly the guide, but you can also take a look at this podcast is there. Of course, my weekly recaps are there. So, and then my two other projects, the intergalacticgear.com, my merch store, Star Atlas. Again, not a lot of products, just some mugs and some wall art. And I do have a merch survey. I'd love to get your feedback. And again, trying to start my own Star Atlas community for gamers who don't want to join guilds, but nevertheless want to hang out with other Star Atlas gamers. So please go to intergalacticcoalition.com and fill out that interest survey. Other than that, thanks for listening to my week in review of Star Atlas. This again is Matt. Hope you have a great week ahead.